you have weapons in Ukraine that have started showing up on the internet, right? So people are selling javelins, for example, on the dark web. Here is a US-made javelin, right? $30,000 a piece. If you look at the link up there, this is from the Tor Onion service. It's not a regular website. Again, it's the dark web, and I think that it became sort of infamous because of Silk Road and all this, like, it's this secret part of the internet where all this shady stuff is done, and drugs are bought and so on. And yeah, to some extent it's true. It's absolutely true. And you have weapons from Ukraine being sold there now. Now, I will say one thing. Some accounts are saying that this javelin actually came from Syria to Ukraine. Nevertheless, what we're going to explore here is the consequence that this unfettered shipment of weapons to Ukraine has, right? You have so many weapons that are flowing into Ukraine that no one can keep track of them. But as a matter of fact, when Senator Rand Paul blocked the weapons to Ukraine, saying that we have to have, we, the Americans meaning, have to have oversight. We need to know where this money is going, where these weapons are going. And they just went around him and got it through anyway. Can you imagine? So even when you try to have oversight, the politicians just don't care. They don't care. You know why? Because as soon as the money goes from the government to the arms dealers, which are basically also the government, that's it. That's all that matters, okay? As soon as the money's changed hands, we're good. Whether the javelin ends up on the moon or in Zimbabwe or Syria, it makes no difference. They don't care. The location of it, it said it's in Kiev, right? And it's 30,000 a piece. I'm wondering, how many pieces do these guys have? So it was also posted by ASP. They posted screenshots of this. They say they're selling javelins on the Darknet, and the command of the armed forces of Ukraine resells equipment and weapons supplied by NATO to the Middle East and North Africa. Again, I don't know if I can't confirm this independently, but that's what they're saying on ABS. On ASP. They're generally straight. And you know what this reminded me of? Well, several things, and they're not good. A few weeks ago, this article appeared. This is what Interpol is saying, right? So this was published in AA. They said, Interpol fears weapons delivery to Ukraine will end up on the black market. Wow, you think? That's very attentive of you. So Interpol have expressed serious concern about the delivery of small and heavy weapons to Ukraine that can end up in the hands of criminals in Europe. The head of the agency, the head of Interpol, Jürgen Stock, urged countries supplying military equipment to Kiev to focus on tracing mechanisms. So, weapons, for example, they have a serial number. When you buy a gun or a rifle, they always have a serial number. Obviously, what criminals do is they just file it off. Now, in addition to that, you can, of course, trace with ballistics and forensics. You can match a bullet to a barrel. But again, no one has time to do this in a war zone. Quote, the wide availability of weapons during the current conflict will lead to the proliferation of illicit weapons in the post-conflict phase. Stock, who's the head of the agency, feared the pilferage of arms and armaments by criminals in the EU's black market as prices of guns are higher there. Several European countries, including France and Germany, along with the US, have delivered high-end defense equipment, artillery munitions, and guns to help Ukraine defend its territory and fight Russian forces. The concern comes after US armed forces exited Afghanistan in 2021, following 2 decades of war, and left huge amounts of military equipment which eventually fell into the hands of the Taliban. Stock said the heavy military weapons will be available on the criminal market. Well, ISIS also. You remember those videos and those photos of columns of ISIS trucks coming into to take major Iraqi cities, Mosul, and just a few kilometers outside Baghdad. They were all over the place, and it's menacing, of course. But if you look closely at these ISIS types, they're wearing American boots. That guy has an American weapon. they're driving Humvees, right? Which is the military version of the Hummer. So, they are using American equipment. They're wearing American surplus. And what happened is basically ISIS had succeeded in massacring, I should say, a lot of the Iraqi security forces, which had been given equipment by the Americans. The reason you had so much military equipment in Iraq for ISIS to take, it's not just because, ISIS were good fighters and they raided the base. Yeah, what was it doing there in the first place? Money! Money! Do you understand? Whenever the United States invades a country, it's not just making money from the weapons sales. It's also making money in the reconstruction. Do you understand? The quote-unquote reconstruction, which, sorry, we can't leave. We have to stay here like another year. There's ISIS. You see those guys over there? You don't want us to leave, do you? Do you? You wouldn't want that. Come on. And then another year, and they end up staying 20 years. How much money do you think the Americans have made training and equipping the infamous Afghan army, which collapsed in 2 weeks, right? And within 2 weeks, the Taliban had taken Kabul. Same thing in Iraq. They all have U.S. military gear. This is money. Lots of money. Do you understand? Every pair of boots, every guy, every soldier is money. Thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And the weapons, don't even get me started on the weapons. The United States creates power vacuums, meaning groups like ISIS can take over, criminal gangs can take over, extremists can take over, and then they come in to fight those extremists that they created by selling more weapons and more money, more arms to the state security apparatus, which they of course control, right? I wouldn't exactly describe the Iraqi government as being free of American influence, unfortunately. Now, obviously with Ukraine, I've warned you about this, man. I'm telling you, I would not be surprised if you start seeing these weapons spreading all over Europe. And more importantly, just like Al-Qaeda spread from Afghanistan and Pakistan in the Khyber Pass and Peshawar areas where Maktab al-Khadamat was the recruiting office basically. But Maktab al-Khadamat translates to bureau service. Just like Al-Qaeda spread from that area all the way to Syria, to Iraq, to Yemen, I would not be surprised if you see groups like Azov spreading from Ukraine all over Europe. I really hope I'm wrong. And with them, the weapons. It generates clicks to see, oh, look, oh my God, a javelin for sale on the internet for 30,000. Yeah. And you know what? That javelin is bringing with it a lot of other misery and death and destruction. That's the problem, man. This is just the start. It's just the beginning. You won't see most of this on the internet. You won't see these transactions. You won't see these groups as they grow happening on the internet or on TV. Just before you know it, you're going to have like an Azov, spin-off or variant somewhere else in Europe. I told you guys why they got rid of Gaddafi, right? The official story that they tell you on TV to brainwash you into supporting the West bombing other countries and killing people and destroying their countries is that, oh, he's a dictator, right? So, I mean, even if you bought that story, what NATO did to Libya is far worse. So if you care about Libya, that's the rubbish. That's the fake propaganda they tell you. Oh, he's a dictator. Oh, he's this and that, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't mean he's perfect, but the real reason they got Gaddafi is because of the gold, right? So he wanted to use the 143 tons of gold in the Libyan central bank, which Hillary Clinton was talking about in her emails, coincidentally, to create a new currency, which would have undermined the US dollar and the French CFA franc. So both the French and the Americans saw this, and they're like, you're messing with our money. This is the red line. We are coming to get you. And remember that when they tell you NATO is a defensive alliance, right? They're in Libya, bombing a construction facility for the great man-made river. Sure, very defensive. After they got rid of Gaddafi, what happens? You have all these weapons lying around in Libya. Again, I told you before, Gaddafi was really anti-imperialist, man. Anybody that he saw fighting, the British, fighting these European colonial powers, he would just send them boatloads, literally boatloads in boats of weapons and money, right? And this guy had huge, ammo caches and weapon caches. So the CIA, which helped to overthrow Gaddafi, they looked at Libya and they said, wow, this is great. You know what we're going to do with these weapons? We're going to send them to Syria, to Al-Qaeda and groups that are working with Al-Qaeda to overthrow Bashar al-Assad, right? So there was a famous article in the New York Times, and I believe the title was The Death of a Secret $1 Billion War. Here we go. This is August 2017 that it was published, and it says, behind the sudden death of $1 billion secret CIA war in Syria. And so what they talk about here is Operation Timber Sycamore. Operation Timber Sycamore is exactly what I explained to you now. It's the rat line where the CIA and their contacts and their friends and assets were funneling all of these weapons that, they suddenly had at their disposal in Libya all the way to Syria and making sure that they fell into the right hands, right? Officially, they tell you, no, we never armed any rebels. No. We only gave them radios. We gave them non-lethal aid. Look, we gave them plasters. We promise you, these guys are not extremists. And even if they were, don't worry, it's just radios. Yeah, okay, you're very funny. So they were giving literally all these weapons from pistols to, rifles to you name it. And then they claim that Donald Trump gets elected and he ends the program. You're departing from the premise that the CIA only has one rat line program from Libya to Syria. And that assumes that the CIA is not doing anything in Syria, which is obviously untrue. They're still trying to get rid of Assad. And by the way, even if this is true, Donald Trump and Mike Pompeo, what do? They put sanctions on Syria. The so-called Caesar Act sanctions. And what do these sanctions do? They starve Syrians. That's why my cousins call me and they say they have to wait 2-3 hours to get one bag of bread. Or they have to wait 2 days in the fucking gas station. Can you imagine leaving your car in a queue 48 hours to get gas? No, you can't. And that's what Donald Trump and Mike Pompeo have inflicted on Syria. And it's not just them, of course. There are many other countries involved, but, they're helping to destroy the country in the end. And I just want to say that even when the West, they claim not to be arming extremists, it turns out to be a lie. Because all of these weapons were going to extremists in Syria. They were going to terrorists, and the CIA knew about it. And just like right now, the U.S. has a ban, quote unquote, on arming the Azov battalion. Do you know what they would do? Like, this is typical American illegal fuckery. The United States will go and say, like, well, we didn't give them the weapons. We just told them coordinates of where they might find weapons. So technically, that's not arming. Or that group is called Azov Plus, and technically, that's not Azov. So we armed them. This is exactly the kind of crap that they would do. Not that they would have to actually appear anywhere and justify that, because it would be kept secret, of course. But this is exactly how I imagine the CIA's lawyers trying to go through this, if they actually care to. They say that Ukraine criminals are selling American missiles on the dark web. Pro-Russian media claims. What the point of that is? Are they selling them or not? I feel like they use this to kind of denigrate or cause people to suspect the veracity of the story, which is really sick that they've conditioned people to thinking Russia is a bad word, Iran is a bad word. Like, oh, it's pro-Iranian media saying that. It necessarily implies something bad or untrustworthy. They don't want you to question the arms shipments, right? When Rand Paul did that, they said, oh, he's helping Putin. For what? Asking for verification? For someone to just check where the money's going? Where the weapons are going? Are you crazy? Like, you're sending $40 billion and you don't want any oversight? Yeah. You're a Putin puppet if you ask for that. And so right now, if you say there are weapons going to Ukraine that are falling into criminals' hands, there are weapons being sold on the dark web. Oh, that's pro-Russian media saying that. You don't want to trust them. Nothing bad is happening. Everything is perfect. Just say Putin bad and shut up. Don't ask any questions, man. So Biden has pledged billions of dollars, we know that, and adding another 700 million package this week. Adding another 700 million package this week that included 1,000 Javelin rockets. The US has already provided 5,500 Javelins to Ukraine, a number that at one point threatened to diminish sufficient stockpiles for its own war plans. The State Department told Fox News that it consistently monitors any reports of alleged diversion of US origin defense equipment anywhere and takes any allegations of potential weapons diversions seriously. Again, they just talk about Russian disinformation, but let me tell you something, man. Afghanistan, Syria, Libya, don't even get me started on Central and Latin America. The Americans know exactly where these weapons are going and the risks associated with it. They have people whose job it is to come in the morning and write down what the risks are of sending these weapons and whose hands they might fall into, and is it worth the trouble, etc. What's the desired outcome? Can we achieve that desired outcome? They have people whose jobs it is to calculate this stuff. They're not stupid. They're not stupid, and there is a reason that we keep seeing American weapons. Not only American weapons, but aid, specifically military aid, making money for the military-industrial complex, and then on top of it, ending up in the hands of criminals. I can't confirm that this is true, but there's a website, okay, in Turkish, they're saying that the anti-tank weapons and assault rifles sent by Western countries to Ukraine came out of Syria. Okay, so this Javelin, they're saying someone in Idlib sold it or is selling it. Do you understand? Like, it's not a Javelin that went from the United States to Ukraine and then somebody put it up for sale on the dark web. No. This was sent from Syria to Ukraine, which I don't even know what to say. I'm really just like stunned at this point, you know. It's almost comical, you know, if it weren't so sad. So they're saying that the arms dealer states he bought from Ukrainian commanders and brought the weapons to Syria's Idlib region, quoting a price of $15,000 for anti-tank weapons, including the US-made Javelin. It's very confusing because at one second they say they was brought from Idlib to Ukraine, and then the other way around. The other thing I wanted to say, I've never seen or heard of Javelins being used in Syria, so I'm a bit confused why they would be there. I mean, hey, don't get me wrong. You see all kinds of weapons, man. You got people with a K-98 Mauser from World War I, you know, running around. It's hilarious in a sense, but I think because the translation is not so well done, I think what happened is probably went from Ukraine to Syria. That's more realistic. Look, he's taking selfies with the Javelins. Oh man, this is so nuts. Oh my god, man. It's like, it's real. Look, see? It's a real Javelin. I'm real. Okay, so this is what's going on. This guy bought them from Ukraine, and now he's reselling them $15,000 a piece from Idlib. Again, just think of the quantity here. You know, they sent 40 billion to Ukraine, and half of that was just for weapons. That's in addition to the $800 million there and this package over here. And in addition, the lend-lease, as the name implies, Ukraine can lend and lease as many weapons as it wants. It's unlimited, right? Of course, there are conditions and so on, but you understand my point. There's so many weapons going to Ukraine. I'm stunned. I don't even know how they can use them all. How can you look at this and not see that this is a proxy war? I mean, what on earth are you doing? Why are you even talking about international politics, man? Yes, this is happening in Ukraine. It's not just about Ukraine. It's about NATO using Ukraine to mess with Russia. They're literally throwing everything, you know, at the Russians, the kitchen sink included. What more do you need? And of course, in addition to all the death, the destruction, the poor refugees, all the people in Ukraine who are civilians, who have literally nothing to do with these decisions, who don't care about politics, who just want to live a normal life, They have been now swallowed and dragged into this war, their lives and their country turned upside down, just so some weapons dealers could make some money. You know, when you give money, unlimited amounts of money, to people that you know are extremists, are white supremacists, are religious extremists, whoever, whether it's the whether it's the Mujahideen, whether it's Al-Qaeda, literally Al-Qaeda in Syria, or Nazis. It's one Nazi too many. And let me be clear, because you have people who are still in denial. Okay, for the people in denial, let's say not a single Nazi is getting hold of these weapons. That still does not mitigate the risk that these weapons will fall into hands of criminals. You can't avoid this. There's simply too many weapons, and no one cares to even trace them. And when someone like Rand Paul wanted oversight, they told them to go away. So I don't know what to tell you. I mean, this is at best irresponsibility of the highest order. I can't say anything else. I really can't say anything else.